If you've ever wondered how some companies manage to navigate absolute economic chaos and still come out on top, well, you're in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we're diving straight into Chapter 3 of Suleman Anwar's book to uncover why true, lasting organizational strength is always built from the inside out.
Get this. Studies show that over 70% of strategic transformation efforts end up failing. 70%! So using Anwar's text, Strategic Management, From Vision to Transformation, we're going to perform a deep dive diagnostic checkup. We want to see how organizations can actually build internal operations resilient enough to beat those odds. We're getting past the surface level stuff and looking right under the hood.
It really begs the question, right? Why do some thrive while others just totally collapse? And the answer isn't about getting lucky with market trends. It's about having the internal muscle to adapt. It's about building an architecture of execution that can literally take a punch from the market and keep moving forward.
To wrap our heads around this, we need to look through two different strategic lenses. The outside-in approach basically asks, where is the battlefield? But today, we're focusing on the inside-out approach, which asks a much better question. What weapons are we bringing to the fight? This is known as the resource-based view, or RVB. It's all about competing through your uniquely developed internal capabilities. So here's our strategic X-ray roadmap for today. First, auditing management with POSLC. Second, diagnosing organizational culture. Third, the value chain audit. Fourth, resources and the VRIO framework. And finally, number 5, calculating your IFE matrix score. Let's jump right in. Section 1, auditing management with POSC. Think of this as checking the nervous system of the organization.
You know, you can have the most brilliant strategy in the world, but if your management fundamentals are weak, the whole thing just falls apart. That's where the POSLC framework comes in. Planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. Doing this audit reveals if a strategy is actually backed up by robust, repeatable discipline, or if it's just propped up by a few key people. Basically, it asks, is the company built to last, or is it just built for right now?
Now, what's really fascinating is when we look at emerging markets, specifically the Pakistani firms analyzed in our source material, we see some very common pitfalls. You've got over-centralization, where founders hold all the cards, a total lack of formal succession planning, and these highly subjective performance reviews. Relying on a charismatic founder instead of structured systems, well, that creates a massive vulnerability when it's time to actually scale the business. Moving on to Section 2, diagnosing organizational culture. This is where we look at the organization's very DNA. Look, culture isn't just some fluffy, abstract HR concept. If we look at it through the cultural web framework, we see it's made up of really tangible, interconnected gears. Stories, symbols, rituals, control systems, and structures. When you put them all together, they dictate the paradigm. In other words, they dictate how work actually gets done every single day. Let me give you a great example of how this can be intentionally rewired. Look at the fashion brand Coty. To support their rapid global expansion, they purposefully reshaped their entire cultural web. They started telling new internal stories about the founder's creative journey. They embraced a unique Pakistani design identity as a core symbol and built new rituals, like these creative collaboration sessions. By doing all of this, they shifted their entire paradigm from a strict hierarchy to a global, creativity-empowered brand vision.
All right, Section 3, the value chain audit. This is where we see how culture and management translate into physical organizational muscle.
Popularized by Michael Porter, the value chain tracks the actual flow of work, starting at inbound logistics, through operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, all the way to service. Auditing these steps is a total game changer. It shows leaders exactly where real value is being added for the customer, and maybe more importantly, where hidden inefficiencies are draining the company's resources.
Let's ground this in reality with a few examples. Lucky Cement totally streamlined its operation step by building these highly automated, energy-efficient plants, giving them a massive cost advantage. Coty realized they were losing value at the end of their chain, so they used forward integration to take over their own retail outlets and strictly control the customer experience. And Interloop, they put in place real-time digital monitoring across their entire global supply chain. The takeaway here is that mastering these day-to-day physical activities is what actually generates competitive strength.
Which brings us to Section 4, resources and the VRIO framework. Now we're digging into the company's truly unique assets.
According to that resource-based view we mentioned earlier, just having assets isn't nearly enough. To get a sustained competitive advantage, a resource has to pass the VRIO test.
That means it must be valuable, it must be rare, it has to be inimitable, meaning incredibly hard for competitors to copy, and the organization must actually be organized to exploit it.
Think about Meezan Bank. Their authentic Sharia-compliant framework isn't just valuable. In the banking sector, it's super rare. And because of the deep cultural alignment it requires, it's highly inimitable. Plus, they're perfectly organized around it, making it a real core competence. Or take Engro. Their specific ecosystem culture of innovation, you literally can't just buy or replicate that overnight. That's the power of a true VRIO resource.
Finally, we hit Section 5, the IFE Matrix Score. This is where we bring everything together and quantify the company's health. It is so easy to get totally lost in qualitative ideas like culture or leadership, while the Internal Factor Evaluation Matrix, or IFE matrix, forces you to put hard numbers on those concepts. Let's look at a hypothetical textile firm, Pactex. You list out the internal strengths and weaknesses, assign a weight based on how important they are to the industry, and then a rating for how well the company is doing. Multiply those together, and boom, you've got a mathematical picture of your internal health.
The ultimate truth is in that final score. For Pactex, it comes out to 2.57. Now in this model, a 2.5 is exactly average. Anything above a 3.0 means you're incredibly strong internally, but dipping below 2.0, that signals some serious danger. By turning all those soft concepts into a hard baseline metric of 2.57, Pactex knows exactly where they stand. They're average, and they know they need to fix things like their lack of R&D before they even think about aggressive expansion.
And really, that is the core lesson of this entire explainer. Strategic clarity requires absolute, unflinching self-awareness. By auditing management with POSLC, mapping your cultural web, tracking your value chain, and rigorously testing your assets with VRL, you build the kind of internal resilience that lets you thrive in a completely volatile market. So, as you look at your own organization, I want to leave you with a crucial question to chew on. Are you just reacting to the market, hoping external trends magically go your way? Or are you actively building an internal engine that's actually capable of transforming your highest vision into a daily reality? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep building from the inside out.